Why?
Why?
Follow the chicken.
Because he was chasing a dog.
Makes total sense.
Good job, buddy. He heard joke and he's learned some new jokes. So
What do you call an angry carrot?
What?
A steamed vegetable.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
Oh, you're gonna Matt. Oh, here comes Matt.
Yeah, bye, Matt. You're out.
Matt's out. Matt's out.
I just got upstage.
Could you please?
no, we're gonna say bye-bye and go get you tucked in.
I don't know.
Bye, Russell.
Bye, Russell.
See you around.
Bye, Russell.
See you next week, Russell.
Yeah. No
we
more
have our
dad
official
jokes. It's now
backup.
Russell jokes now, not dad jokes.
I can retire my material officially.
Official backup.
Not next week, though.
No,
No,
we
not
got
next
a couple weeks. Guest of honor at the retreat.
Hello?
Hello.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Hello. Emily, are we good with channel 8?
I have not heard anything, but I will check right now.
Thank you.
I was in the municipal building today and saw all the people working hard on chambers, putting out equipment, tearing the place down, putting it back together. It was impressive.
We are trying our best, although I hear we've had some delay in parts, and so stay tuned for that.
Will we be getting heated?
No, you will not. You disabuse people of that.
And then you'll be falling asleep at the dais because you'll be too comfortable.
You should go the other direction where our city attorney has a red zap button to make sure that we are paying attention to our constituents.
Oh, I have that.
All right, Mayor, channel 8 is ready upon your cue.
Very good. And Lauren and Taisha, are you present?
Yes, I don't know what's going on with my camera. I'm trying to push the button, but it's not working.
There you go.
Oh, got back on. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and get us started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Thursday, March 21st, 2024 regular meeting of the Boulder City Council. I'll go ahead and call us to order. And Elisha, if you could do roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And good evening, everyone. We'll start tonight's roll call as usual with Councilmember Adams.
Present.
Benjamin.
Present.
Mayor Brockett.
Present.
Councilmember Folkerts.
Present.
Marquis.
Here.
Shuhard.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Present.
Councilmember Wallach.
Here.
And Wagner.
Here.
Mayor, we have our quorum.
Thank you so much, Elisha. All right, our first item is 1A, which is a declaration about the Boulder Day of Remembrance. And this is something that I am going to read, so I will go ahead and get us started. March 22nd, 2021 is a date that will be forever sealed into the collective memory of our community. On that Monday afternoon, a grievous atrocity was committed that will mark each of us for the rest of our lives, but none more so than the families and friends of the 10 people taken from us suddenly and violently, people going about their daily lives, doing their jobs, feeding their families, protecting one another. Our entire community joins those families and friends in saying the names of our neighbors taken from us before their time. Denny Stong, Nevin Stanisic, Ricky Olds, Trelona Bartkowiak, Suzanne Fountain, Terry Liker, Kevin Mahoney, Lynn Murray, Jody Waters, and Officer Eric Talley. It has been said that there are 3 deaths. The first is when the body ceases to function. The second is when the body is returned to the earth. And the third is that moment sometime in the future when the person's name is spoken for the very last time. Let us never allow this third death of our 10 fallen neighbors. Let us take the time to speak their names, celebrate their lives, mourn their passing. As long as we remember them, they will never truly die. And so as our modest and humble gesture, the City Council of the City of Boulder declares that every year, in perpetuity, March 22nd shall be designated the Boulder Day of Remembrance. On that day, every year, our community will pause and remember the 10 people who departed. On that day, every year, we will celebrate their lives. On that day, every year, we will say their names out loud so that in our hearts, they will live on. Thank you. And Nuri, I wonder if we might make an announcement about the memorial event that we'll be holding at E-Town tomorrow night.
Happy to, Mayor. That event will be from 6 to 7:30. The doors will open at 5 p.m. E-Town, for those that may not have had the pleasure of being there, is at 1535 Spruce Street, here in Boulder, of course. It will also be live streamed, and that information is at the bouldercolorado.gov/boulderstrong. It's on our website if people want to know. The cost of the event is free. It is open to the public. We hope you will be there. We will be remembering folks and be there in person. We hope the public comes. It is an important event to show up and to show our remembrance as we lift up those in memory and in celebration.
Thank you for that, Maria. We hope to see many of you there at that important memorial event tomorrow. And with that, we will move to item 1B, which is the Boulder Arts Week declaration presented by Councilmember Wallach. Mark, you're muted.
Of course I am. Mayor, thank you for that really beautiful statement. It's a little difficult to follow that, but I will do my best. This is for the Boulder Arts Week 2024. Boulder Arts Week is the city's only large-scale, inclusive celebration of our community's artists and robust arts and cultural offerings. Boulder Arts Week 2024 will feature cultural experiences from our musicians, dancers, actors, authors, and artists of all media in events in every neighborhood of Boulder. Boulder is one of the most vibrant arts communities in the U.S., ranking in the top 1% in the concentration of artists, cultural organizations, and creative businesses. The arts contribute to Boulder's economic vitality by stimulating creativity and innovation, creating jobs, attracting new businesses, and creating an environment that attracts skilled and educated workers. The arts are an economic engine in their own right. According to the National Endowment for the Arts, nonprofits in Boulder generate over $115 million in annual economic activity, supporting 2,450 jobs and generating $21.9 million in local, state, and federal government revenues. Arts and cultural experiences in Boulder also enhance our community's social bonds. Participation in the arts is proven to have benefits to mental and physical health. Cultural activity bridges divides and connects people across differences. The arts narrate the most important issues of our times and build the foundations for action on the challenges of climate adaptation, race equity, and housing stability. The arts foster beauty, originality, and vitality, and make our city feel more welcoming to the benefit of all. The arts and culture sector has not recovered as quickly as the rest of the economy after the pandemic. Regional nonprofits lost a decade of growth in tickets to the reduction in live performing arts events, and thousands of arts jobs were lost. Yet the arts continue to enhance the social resilience of our community through the lingering effects of the pandemic and mitigating other stresses on our neighbors, friends, and families. The arts play an essential role in individual and collective healing, critical to our ongoing recovery and resilience. For over a decade, the arts leaders who collaborate on Boulder Arts Week have amplified the visibility of the arts within the local community and highlighted the breadth and depth of Boulder's cultural offerings. They will do so again this year and invite you to enjoy, celebrate, and support your friends, family, and neighbors in Boulder's arts and culture community. Now, therefore, be it declared by the City Council of the City of Boulder, Colorado, that April 5 to April 13, 2024 is Boulder Arts Week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And I understand we have Elise from Yoga Pearl here to receive the declaration. Elise, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much for the introduction. My name is Elise. I manage Yoga Pearl, which is located on 9th Street between Walnut and Pearl. We're so honored to be accepting the Boulder Arts Week declaration this year. The owner of Yoga Pearl, Aaliyah Sebin, and I were both art majors in college, and that's led us to have an appreciation for the arts and to make sure that we incorporate them into our business. We've made a community supporting other local small businesses part of our mission, and that's led us to partner with local musicians to offer live music classes. We sell locally made jewelry and yoga props, and all of our merchandise is made locally by local branding and screen printing companies. We also host a small business market every year on Small Business Saturday to give local makers without brick and mortar locations a place to sell their work and connect with their buyers. In the interest of progressing our community, we've created a mentorship program for new yoga teachers to help them find their voice and express their passion through yoga. And along with this, we promote the individuality and expression that comes through having a yoga practice, not to mention the networking that naturally happens within our space and our community members. The arts are an undervalued aspect of our society, but we are so grateful to live in a town that has so many opportunities for those in the arts. Boulder Arts Week is a great reminder to look around and appreciate the beauty it brings to our daily lives. So we're so grateful to be accepting this declaration this year and for you guys to make us a part of it.
Thanks so much for joining us and for all the phenomenal yoga you bring to our community and as part of Arts Week and every day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it is now time for open comment. Alicia, could you go over the public participation guidelines, please?
Yes, sir, of course. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. We appreciate it. I will now go over the public participation at City Council meeting guidelines. The city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. This vision supports physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and council, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experience, and political perspectives. For more information about this vision and the community engagement processes, please visit our website at bouldercolorado.gov/services/productive-atmospheres. The following are examples of rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Code and other guidelines that support this vision. These will be upheld during this meeting. Our remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct the meeting are prohibited. Participants are required to sign up to speak using the name they are commonly known by, and individuals must display their whole name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted online. Again, thank you for joining us, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Alicia. Okay, I'll read 3 names at a time, and each person will get 2 minutes to speak, and that limit is strictly enforced for fairness reasons, just FYI. Okay, our first 3 speakers are Patrick O'Rourke, Joan Nagel, and Tim Thomas.
Hello, Boulder City Council members. I'm Patrick O'Rourke, president of Historic Boulder. Tonight is the first reading for a possible new historic district. It's in your package. Boulder is very fortunate to have 10 historic districts, and hopefully very soon we'll have an 11th. On April 11th, staff will present this new district proposals to you. The new historic district will include several amendments. All the amendments were unanimously approved by our Boulder Landmarks Board. The most significant amendment to the historic proposal is a request to expand the western boundary to include blocks 10 and 11. We believe this expanded boundary resulted from Boulder's community outreach program. The expanded boundary came from a request from the Boulder County NAACP. Historic Boulder supports the inclusion of the expanded boundary and agrees with the NAACP on its historical significance to Boulder. On another note, we want to thank Marcy, Claire, Aubrey, and the entire Landmarks Board for the exhaustive and time-consuming research that they did on this historic district proposal. And we believe all the information you need will be in your package and available for you to approve this proposal on the April 11th date. Thank you for your time. Have a great night.
Thank you, Patrick. Now we have Joan Nagel, Tim Thomas, and Dan Lesham.
Hi, my name's Joan Nagel. I've been a Boulder resident since 1971 and have been at the same address since 1982. And I just wanted to thank members of the City Council for agreeing that weighing in on international conflicts is not a good use of time for this council or for the City of Boulder. And I would like to give the remainder of my time back to the council to address important city issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Tim Thomas, Dan Lesham, and Ryan Scott.
My name is Tim Thomas, and I'm president of the Resident Representative Council, the RRC. Our organization is a registered nonprofit consisting of residents who have been, this organization has been in existence since 1977. Our mission is to provide oversight over the City of Boulder's Housing Authority. The Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development requires that all housing authorities, including Boulder's, maintain a relationship through a memorandum of understanding with one and only one resident advisory board. You can see 24 CFR 903 and 24 CFR 964. As far as I know, I am the first Black president of the RRC. Our secretary is Latina. Our treasurer is a white male, but is also elderly and ill. We have a committee of directly assisted individuals that include white males and a Black female. We are a diverse group, and for the last 6 months, BHP executives have been aggressively working to disenfranchise us of our federally guaranteed rights. In fact, BHP has formed a new illegitimate and illegal group that is yet to have a name. By the way, our website is boulderrrc.org. It'll be back up next week. This new RAB, Resident Advisory Board, does not have diversity. This does not have families. I've spoken to a current member of this illegitimate and illegal Resident Advisory Board. This person tells me that he doesn't feel comfortable working with this group. And once again, I implore the city attorney, the housing, Mr. Fernhaber, and the rest of City Council to look into this. They haven't even put a new resident commissioner on their website. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Dan Lesham, Ryan Scott, and Jaclyn Wall.
Good evening. Dan Lesham couldn't be here tonight. My name is Matt Most. I'm acting director of the Colorado Jewish Community Relations Council. And I want to thank the City Council for not bringing an Israel-Gaza resolution and weighing into international affairs. And I also wanted to thank the City Council for their tireless work on behalf of the people of Boulder. And with that, I yield my time for the critical work of the council. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Now we have Ryan Scott, Jaclyn Wall, and Catherine Barth.
I do not see Ryan or Jaclyn online, but Ryan or Jaclyn, if you are here, please let me know by using the raise hand function or reaching out to me in the Q&A box.
Very good. We'll come back and see if they've arrived at the end of the other speakers. So we have Catherine Barth, and then Dragonfly Rainbow and Rachel Klein-Demorty.
Good evening, Council. I'm assuming I am unmuted. I have asked that the sections 2.27, 2.28, and 2.29 of the comp plan be put up on your screen to remind you how the county and city together value the preservation of buildings, districts, sites, and natural features, and strive to protect them by local designation. In 2013, I was honored to participate with the stakeholders that Martha Gerwing gathered to be part of the process called for in section 2.29 to develop Boulder's preservation plan, which was updated in 2019. On page 34 of the preservation plan, you'll find that it says, quote, designate eligible city-owned buildings and lead by example. Boulder aspires to lead by example, modeling excellent stewardship for all city-owned buildings, including those in parks and on open space. The city's willingness to actively participate in its own historic preservation program instills a sense of unity with owners of landmark properties and buildings within historic districts, unquote. In my experience, Boulder is a remarkable place that protects and values our historic resources and is respected throughout the country. We are a city that walks the walk as well as talking the talk. In response to a question of why landmark the whole of Central Park and the 5 already designated buildings, I would say that as we approach the redesign of the East End, the future design and management of the area will be facilitated by having one group of cooperating managers and interested users rather than 5 competing groups. Or, as Aristotle said, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. This evening, a proposed historic district composed of...
Your time is up, but thank you for your presentation. Now we have Dragonfly Rainbow, Rachel Klein-Demorty, and Arsen Yerlin.
I do not see a Dragonfly Rainbow online, but if you are here, please let me know by using the raise hand function or reaching out to me in the Q&A box.
Okay, so we have Rachel Klein-Demorty, Arsen Yerlin, and Stephen Walsh.
Hi, my name is Rachel Klein-Demorty, and I've been a resident of Boulder for over 11 years. Thank you, Boulder City Council, for voting against a consideration for a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in the war that Hamas started against Israel. War is horrible and human suffering from war is tragic. And while this is not being debated, we appreciate you staying true to the role you were elected to oversee the development and safety of our community and not to rein in on foreign policy. We have serious local issues that need our attention and resources, and we thank you for prioritizing these needs. One such issue that directly affects the safety of our community is the Jew hatred and anti-Semitic rhetoric that plagues many of the messaging we've heard and seen calling for this resolution. This type of demonization is reflected in a 360% increase in anti-Semitic incidences across the U.S. that include 2 bomb threats against Jewish congregations in Boulder since October 7th. Civil discourse is needed more now than ever to find common ground and effective solutions to peace and coexistence. Gaslighting through fear, intimidation, and aggression have no place for real peaceful solutions, and that applies to local, national, and international matters. Thank you so much for this platform to share residents' concerns, and thank you for your service. I yield my time.
Thank you. Now we have Arts in Your Lawn, Stephen Walsh, and Alan Wagner.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. I'm a fellow Muslim community member, and in this holy month of Ramadan, Muslims across the world gather to break their fast at dusk with a shared nutritious meal. In Gaza, however, this isn't the case as the ongoing war has deprived locals of food security. My stance is I ask the city of Boulder to pass a ceasefire and reconsider and become part of the national movement to protect Palestinians. One critical reason that supports the ceasefire is the famine and starvation of Palestinians. Right before the start of Ramadan, this holy month, countless accounts of Israeli forces targeting civilians running to aid have been recorded. According to Chicago Global Affairs, UNICEF reports that 1 in 6 children in northern Gaza under 2 years old are malnourished due to the blockade of food, medicine, and water imposed by Israel. Now, this means in Ramadan that the Palestinians who do not succumb to malnutrition are being starved. Boulder's passing a ceasefire is a step towards national action, stopping the conflict and allowing for the distribution of safe aid. Another reason to consider and reconsidering the ceasefire is just the real intention motivation behind Israel's military action. High-level Israeli officials, the face of the people running the military agenda, have said time and time and again that the intentions of this violence is not to fight terrorists, but rather to perform ethnic cleansing. Settlement Minister Ori Struk said that there's no such thing as Palestinian people. Israeli Heritage Minister Amichai Eliyahu said that the month of Ramadan must be wiped out. Anyone with a clear sense of mind can see that all of these are telltale signs of ethnic cleansing and of genocide. And with this, I'd just like to appeal to the humanity of the council members, consider these 2 reasons, and really just to reconsider and make the right decision to stand against injustice, because verily all of us will be held accountable of our actions and of our complacency. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next 3 speakers are Stephen Walsh, Ellen Wagner, and Mary Streinar.
Hello, my name is Stephen Walsh. I am hoping that they can push up the PowerPoint presentation that I submitted.
Emily or Alicia, do we have that handy?
I'm almost there.
Okay, give us a moment and then we'll start your time.
Okay.
And there we have it. Sorry for the delay.
No problem. Thank you guys so much for having me tonight. I am here as an architect working in Boulder for 45 years. On the screen, you see a newspaper clipping from 1978, which was the first time I appeared before City Council presenting a display system that we had designed. And I only tell you that because in all these 45 years, I have been seeing our community's regulations get more and more complex. And it seems to me as a citizen and as an architect that these processes are preventing us from achieving the things that we're looking for. Next slide. Next slide. And the barrier, I'm sorry, back up one. The barriers to development at the small scale, we're seeing large scale development, but the small scale along our urban core corridors, mainly Broadway and Folsom, you can see those 2 black lines. There's clusters of zoning that's in and out, it's irregular. But the biggest problem I'm finding and running into is the split zone properties. These are properties that have half their property is zoned a commercial use and the other half a residential use in most cases. And because of the small scale and the conflicting zoning intentions for those two zones, these lots are becoming less and less developable. Next slide, please. The irregular shapes of our urban neighborhoods, they're bisected by irrigation ditches. There are long transit corridors, but the properties that are on them have outlived their usefulness. They're small buildings that have become somewhat of a blight in some cases, but more importantly, they're taking the place of density that could be used for housing folks. Next slide. One such case is the old Smooth Motors on Folsom near Walnut.
I'm afraid your time is up, but you may want to email us that PowerPoint presentation so we can take a look. Thank you. And now we have Ellen Wagner, Mary Streinar, and Lin Seagull.
Hi, my name is Ellen Wagner. I attended grad school at CU from 1991 to 1995, and then I moved back to Boulder in 2008 to retire. Clearly a case of Niwa's curse. Thank you, Boulder City Council members, for giving me time to comment. Actually, I have a question. Trump recently claimed that if he were not elected, there would be a, quote, bloodbath, end quote. Clearly, this is a scare tactic, but there is reason to worry about what his radical followers, some in red counties of Colorado, might do around the time of the election to the blue cities, like Boulder, Aspen, and Denver. What plans have you made to protect Boulder's municipal buildings, utilities, and water supply in case of threat? What can we as citizens do? It would be really helpful to have a town hall or other meeting to set out Boulder's plans in case of this particular possible emergency. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speakers are Mary Streinar, Lin Seagull, and Yasser Aziz.
Thank you, Mayor Brockett and fellow council members. I would like to express my gratitude to the majority of council members who voted to reject a ceasefire resolution in the Hamas-Israel war, a war that started when Hamas broke the existing ceasefire on October 7th. The decision to not opine on international affairs demonstrates your collective wisdom that our city council lacks the qualifications and power to impact this crisis. It also reinforces your responsibility as our elected public servants to serve with humility and impartiality in addressing our local issues. Our public servants are required to adhere to the higher standard benefiting their station, and their responsibility is to improve the lives of all residents. Calls for a ceasefire since October 8th, which added to the preceding years of targeted anti-Semitic threats in Boulder's own Jewish community, including our synagogues, K-12 schools, and our JCC, have amplified an already unsettling environment for Boulder's Jews. We have seen that hateful rhetoric justifying a ceasefire increases risk to our safety, further divides the entire Boulder community, and emboldens hate speech. If someone is truly driven by the pursuit of peace and wishes to make a direct impact on those suffering from this current crisis, philanthropic means such as volunteering time to nonprofit organizations or donating humanitarian aid speak volumes. Thank you. I cede my time back to council.
Now we have Lin Seagull, Yasser Aziz, and Sherff Kleinberg.
Lin Seagull, Thursday night, planning board approved 8 units across from Boulder High School where Thrive is. You guys know where Thrive is? That's a little restaurant to service the high school. It's interesting because your staffer, Allison Blaine, had a little bit of a Freudian slip. She said this is residential use, and she meant to say this is restaurant use now. Well, it's supposed to be in the transition zone. It's not. This is got to stop. Enough already of multi-million dollar condos on every corner with no services. Like at Willville 1, it's like outrageous what's going on in this town. And
And, you know, it affects me as an elder, 70 years old, trying to get, as Ryan knows today, trying to get through the library under that open area. There was a curb size thing blocking me in the middle of the bikeway. I drive through there all the time, and I wasn't looking because I didn't expect any stuff left there from the homeless. It was all cleared out. They're all out on the north, you know, just west of there. But I could have killed myself on that thing. I barely made it. You know, this is affecting your residents, this homeless problem. And you know how it happens? It happens at 1015 Juniper, where a place is demolished because the poor people bought something on a conveyance zone and they can't expand it to what they want to. So can't they just demolish it and put up a big, you know, $10 million house? No. No on 1015 Juniper. Reverse 1015 Juniper. That is an outrage. And, you know, Thrive, that little restaurant, reminded me of Boulder Projector, a place where you could go to fix stuff a couple blocks away, right near Boulder High. Shame on you.
Thank you. Now we have Yasser Aziz, Sherff Kleinberg, and Flanders Martin.
Good evening, council members. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Yasser, and I'm calling to ask you to support a ceasefire. And first of all, I would like to address, although this was not part of my speech, but I would definitely like to address a couple of things that have been said by a few people here. First of all, there was never any ceasefire. Please read Albanese's report and Amnesty International's report about 6 large military assaults by Israel from 2008 to 2022. There was no ceasefire before October 7th. Second, there is no, if you think this is about Jewish hate, it is not. We, whenever we go out to protest, half of us are Jewish. And I can get you in touch with anyone from Jewish Voice for Peace, and they would tell you this is not about hate. This is all about life. All we are trying to do is ask you to call for a ceasefire so people stop dying. 31,000 people have been killed already. And according to, as of Monday morning, according to WFP, 1.1 million people are struggling with IPC phase 5. That's, by definition, that means 2 per 1,000 people are dying every day because of hunger, because there is no ceasefire. My question for all of you is, how many more people who are trying to get flour to feed their family being blown up into pieces, how many more bloodbaths like Al-Shifa Hospital and Al-Nasr Hospital do you need to see? These are all of these things are being broadcasted live 24/7 for you to see. What more do you need to see to understand that this has nothing to do with war on terrorism? How much more do you need to see to say to yourself, this ends right now, and I will not be complicit anymore? Thank you, Free Palestine. I give my time back to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Sherff Kleinberg, Flanders Martin, and Paula Polachek.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Hi, my name is Sherff Kleinberg. I have the absolute privilege of calling Boulder as my home for many years. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to thank you for your wisdom of choosing to stay out of international issues and to focus on issues within your purview of Boulder. Boulder is an awesome city, and you all have the privilege of being elected to serve the people within Boulder. You are not expected to be international affairs experts, and this is a very complex issue that is not under the responsibility of city councils. None of you ran on the platform of international issues. This is not what you were elected to do, nor where your expertise lies. Any kind of ceasefire discussion has no potential to make any impact on an international stage. But clearly, it opens the door for hateful, anti-Jewish, and anti-Semitic rhetoric. I am shocked at the pervasive anti-Semitic dialogue that has infiltrated City Council during open comment. In general, these comments are completely irrelevant to what is being discussed, and even worse, being stated by those living outside of Boulder and not pertaining to the many important issues on the agenda or issues that impact this great city. It is asinine that your important time and the limited time allotted for open comment is consumed by those looking for a platform to proliferate hate. I ask that the format of open comment be modified to ensure it is able to serve its intended purpose. No more discussion about something that did not pass. No more opening up old wounds. Open comment.
Thank you for your testimony. Now we have Flanders Norton, Paula Polachek, and Elliot Fey.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. First off, I just wanted to say that we love our Jewish brothers and sisters. What we're speaking up for in favor of a ceasefire is nothing to be anti-Jewish. We love Jewish people. It's to be anti this violence that's happening. We're against violence of all people. So I'm going to take my time to tell you some things that happened this week. Last Thursday, March 14th, Israeli forces opened fire on aid seekers in Gaza, at least 6 killed and dozens wounded. Israeli executed a drone strike on a refugee camp, killing more than a dozen people sheltering there. Israel also struck a family's home in southern Lebanon. The EU Parliament overwhelmingly passed a bill condemning Israeli attacks on aid seekers and called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. March 15th, Apache helicopters opened fire on aid seekers. Israeli Apache helicopters opened fire on aid seekers. Dozens are killed and more than 150 are wounded in what is called a flour massacre due to images of bags of flour meant for humanitarian aid stained red with human blood. Multiple massacres committed by Israel in 24 hours have killed at least 69 civilians, including another bombing of an aid center. Let's see. March 16th, the UN reports 31% of children under the age of 2 in northern Gaza are suffering acute malnutrition. UN experts report US and UK made weapons were used by Israel to kill British doctors working in Gaza. Israel bombs a 7-story residential building in Gaza. It is unclear how many are dead due to people using bare hands to search through the rubble. Israeli airstrikes attack an overcrowded refugee camp, killing at least 36 civilians of the same family. Video surface of corpses piled on the back of flatbed trucks. At least 3 other family residential homes are hit with Israeli strikes, killing most of the owners there. 17th, Israeli airstrikes killed 12 more civilians. Massive protests against the government in Tel Aviv demanding a hostage deal. I don't have much more time, but this is every single day. It's literally attacks on aid seekers, bombing aid warehouses, bombing aid convoys, bombing hospitals. Every single day, they're bombing Al-Shifa. They're executing children. They're executing doctors. This has to stop. Ceasefire now.
Thank you. Now we have Paula Polachek, Elliot Fey, and Laura Gonzalez.
Hi, this is Paula Polachek. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. I'm a 19-year resident of Boulder. I'd like to thank you, Mayor Brockett, and fellow city council members. I want to thank the majority of you for not voting on a Hamas-Israel ceasefire resolution. At this moment in time, the only thing that resolution brings about here in Boulder is a platform for hate. And I think you've been witness to this by the continual barrage of this council each session with misinformation and hateful rhetoric about Israel and Jews. I urge you to continue to focus on local matters where you can really make a difference. My family and fellow Jewish community members are feeling anti-Semitism every day here, making us feel unsafe in our own town. We ask you to stand up to hate in all forms. It matters to all of us. Thank you. I cede my time back to the council.
Thank you. Our last 2 speakers are Elliot Fey and Laura Gonzalez.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, Elliot Fey from Superior, Colorado, but actually sitting on vacation with my family in Florida as we're listening in to misinformation and blood libels again on Israel. I'd actually hope to yield my time back to the council, but some stuff just needs to get set straight. These continual calls for a ceasefire, it's really important to consider this. Peace requires more than one willing participant. And despite what I think an earlier speaker said, Hamas actually did have a ceasefire in effect on the day of the massacre. They do have genocidal intentions when it comes to Israel. So if you're going to, if this council was king of the world, and it's not, and the council could decree, which it can't, what would happen in the Middle East. And if there was an immediate ceasefire with Hamas remaining in power, that's not going to be peace. That's just going to be a cessation so Hamas can rearm and kill Jews in the future, which is their stated intent. But it's not just limited to Hamas. We've done some research into the groups that have been going to councils up and down the Front Range. One of the main ones, they have. I'm not gonna go through all of them. There's several of them, but they have chant lists. And I would like to, with my remaining time, read some of the chants that have been put forward so that you can see that what's the aim here is not peace, but the destruction of Israel. One of the chants is, of course, you've heard, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Another one is resistance is justified when the people are occupied. You know, Nakba, 75 years, give back the land, stop the tears. From the belly of the beast, no justice, no peace. We will honor all our martyrs, all the children, sons and daughters. We will honor all our martyrs, all the parents, mothers, and fathers. Two chants celebrating suicide bombing. Settler, settler, go back home. Palestine is ours alone, denying Jewish connections to land. 1, 2, 3, 4, occupation no more. 5, 6, 7, 8, smash the settler Zionist state, denying Israel's right to exist.
Your time is up, but thank you for your testimony. Our last speaker is Laura Gonzalez.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. As again, my name is Laura Gonzalez, and I identify as a Maya Mopan and Itza indigenous woman. I am here to speak on behalf of only myself as a descendant and survivor of a settler colonial genocide, the original Holocaust committed by white settlers whose ancestors left a legacy that benefits most of y'all. I am here to urge you to drop all your performative and wasteful actions to do Remembrance Days, racial equity, Arts Week, and housing stability, and take action for an issue that impacts all of us, as you heard today. We indigenous people are reliving the genocide of our ancestors while your ancestors and you continue to do nothing. Not only do you continue to refuse to take this issue, but you are funding it with $1.6 million for hardworking tax dollars from the city of Boulder alone. Get to do your job that we elected you for and pass a permanent and immediate ceasefire resolution to stop the genocide of indigenous people in the occupied Palestinian territories by the state of Israel. Mayor, your introduction is shameful. You've been in this position of power for a minute. Instead of passing Remembrance Days, take actions to prevent them, such as banning concealed carry at CU Boulder in our public spaces and a ban to assault weapons could have prevented the mass shooting in our dear city. I recall when you were hesitant to make Boulder a sanctuary city, I asked you to listen to the direct impacted voices. Again, I am asking you to now center Palestinian, Palestinian American, Arab American, and indigenous voices. Boulder likes to pride itself of being a progressive city, yet after 100 cities that have passed a resolution, including the city of Chicago, with almost a 3 million population, you have not yet passed a ceasefire resolution. Today, Bloody Blinken called for a ceasefire resolution, which will be brought to the UN Security Council. Will you be a leader? Will you prevent the continuation of a genocide? Or will you perform your equity and inclusion with another Remembrance Days once Palestinians are massively murdered? Tara Weiner, I want to leave it on the record that you lied to all of your constituents on February 15th, that no one contacted you about the Israeli genocide on the Palestinian people. Not only did I call you and had to ask you to not be defensive and be cordial with me, your constituent, but I and many others emailed you on this matter. I'm asking you to release all of your emails and calls about this matter to show Boulder residents about the truth of this matter. Matt Benjamin, you claim to value environmental conservation.
Thank you for your testimony. And then, did any of our absent speakers show up since we called their names?
They have not.
Okay, in that case, I will go ahead and close the open comment period, and I'll turn to city staff to see if there are any responses.
None from me at this time, Mayor.
Thanks. Teresa?
None from me, thank you.
Is anyone on, thank you, Teresa. Anyone on council like to respond? Ryan?
Thanks. I just wanted to recognize Stephen Walsh. Stephen, if you're still here, you had a presentation about infill. It was pretty meaty. You ran out of time. Mayor Brockett asked you to email it. I just wanted to restate that request. If you can send it to us now through the city site, I have it. I'd love to look at it as we go through this today and forward. So sorry you didn't have enough time. You had a lot there. Please email it to us. I'd like to look at it. Thanks.
And Ryan, he already sent it to us. So it's
great.
in our email box.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Taisha?
I wasn't planning on speaking, but alas, when given a microphone, you do what you can with what you have. So I just wanted to remind folks of what I ran on. And I ran on a climate and culturally resilient city. That's what I ran on. And the atrocities that are happening in Gaza right now not only impact the culture in this city and highlights the work that we still need to do. We have a whole racial healing framework, by the way, that I learned about. I'm like, oh, wow, there are steps that people have codified that can help us to do some of this hard work in these hard conversations. Because again, it does impact our capacity and our ability to work on some of those other issues. But ceasefire has historically worked. So again, I just want to go towards history. I always try and ground my opinion in facts. I am disappointed in the will for ignorance and denial of what we're seeing in front of us, and the impact as an international city about to open 2 restaurants and a convention center and a conference center that can welcome over 200,000 visitors. Many of them will be international. We impact internationally every single day. We lead internationally every single day, including on climate, where again, the climate impacts of what is going on there will impact us here significantly. As we transition and transition towards renewable and other energy sources that are less intensive and extractive, we have to be mindful of the military footprint and the impacts to climate there. Our climate is also significantly impacted. And also the reminder that we've done it before. We did it for South Africa. We did it for Myanmar. We did it for Iraq. Our schools, healthcare systems, housing, employment are all impacted when our federal dollars are stretched, when we're told that we can't afford, when we're fighting over crumbs. We cannot continue to allow this to happen. And so I will continue to stand for an opportunity for us to weigh in on this, because it will continue. But I will also say I am inspired, yay, by Blinken finally coming in and asking for a ceasefire and those who have direct power doing their job. And so I feel less about having to try and persuade y'all, because again, we were using the power that we had and that's what we had. But there are people that have the power to end this tomorrow. And this is where I'm hopeful, and I encourage us to pour our energy towards, as well as our upcoming elections. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Tara and then Mark.
I want to remind all our city council members that we voted on this 7-2, and that is final. So we're not going to relitigate this, because in our book, in our code, it tells us not to. And that's all I'm going to say. We're not discussing international affairs. It's out of our purview, and it was voted on and asked and answered.
Thanks. Mark?
Yes, I want to second that and point out that contrary to what has been described as our willful ignorance, I believe this is our willful understanding of what our jobs actually are. There was also a reference to those who have the power to end this tomorrow. That power is not vested in us. And no matter what we do, that we do not have that authority, we do not have that power. And as my colleague Tara said, this has been asked and answered. We voted on it. Let's not keep going back to the well. It's not productive. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Any other follow-ups to open comments? Right, seeing none, we'll thank people for their
I
testimony.
want to come in again and double dip here. And I just wanted to lift up to Teresa, the one about the, what was it? The residents commission piece. I'm concerned about what I heard about the dissolving of that board, and I would be curious to learn more about that, because that's concerning to know that the new group does not have the representation that is needed to make informed decisions that we rely on. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak with you about that offline.
Okay, seeing no other hands, we'll end the open comment period. And Alicia, can you take us to our consent agenda, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Our consent agenda is item 3 on tonight's agenda, and it consists of items 3A through 3I.
Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, would anyone like to make a motion?
Move we adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Can you do a roll call vote, please, Alicia?
Yes, sir. Thank you. We'll start the roll call for consent agenda items 3A through 3I with Councilmember Adams.
Yes.
Benjamin?
Yes.
Mayor Brockett?
Yes.
Councilmember Folkerts?
Yes.
Marquis?
Yes.
Shuhard?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Spear?
Yes.
Councilmember Wallach?
Yes.
And Weiner.
Yes.
The consent agenda items A through I are hereby approved unanimously.
Thanks for that. If you can take us to our continued public hearing, please.
We need to go to our call-up check-ins next, sir.
Oh, my apologies, I jumped ahead. So if you could do 4A then for us, please.
All right, thank you. Item number 4 on tonight's agenda is our call-up check-ins. 4A is the landmark alteration certificate to construct a new approximately 1,500 square foot accessory building at 1590 Hillside Road in the Hillside Historic District.
Any interest in calling this one up? Okay, seeing none, we can go to 4B.
Yes, sir. 4B is the vacation of a 0.08 acre stormwater detention / water quality and drainage easement located at 311 Mapleton Avenue, associated with the development of the Academy of Mapleton Hill. It is reviewed under case number ADR 2024-00009.
Any interest in calling this one up? All right, seeing none, we will not call that one up either. So, all right, coming back then, if we can go to our continued public hearing, please.
Yes, sir. Item number 5 on tonight's agenda is our public hearing. 5A is the continued public hearing and consideration of a request from the City of Boulder's Utility Department to use and manage an approximately 2.2 acre portion of the Van Vliet open space property to construct, access, operate, and maintain elements of the South Boulder Creek Flood Mitigation Project pursuant to the disposal procedures of Article 12, Section 177 of the City of Boulder Charter and related matters. It is noted that this item will have a limited public hearing to address only items related to the Open Space Board of Trustees action taken at their March 13th meeting.
Thanks for that. Okay, so just acknowledging that since our public hearing on February 22nd, the Open Space Board of Trustees met and did take action at their meeting on March 13th. So I'm going to hand things over to Director of Open Space and Mountain Parks, Dan Burke, for a brief staff presentation to hear more about their action. And we will also hear from Open Space Board of Trustees Chair Dave Coates. So Dan, if you could take it from here, please.
Certainly. Good morning or good evening, Mayor, and good evening, council members. I'm Dan Burke, Director of the Open Space and Mountain Parks Department. And I'm actually joined here tonight as well with the Utilities Director, Joe Tadeucci. And of course, we have a robust project team of both open space staff and utilities staff that, depending on if there's any additional clarifying questions, may hop on and help us address a question that you may have. So for tonight, we have got a very brief staff presentation. And as the mayor said, we will also hear a few minutes from OSBT Chair Dave Kuntz, who will help to summarize the board action that was taken on March 13th. And with that, I would ask that the presentation slides for tonight be raised. Thank you, Emily. And next slide, please. Before we launch forward tonight, you enter into consideration and deliberations, just a quick recap of what took place at the February 22nd joint OSBT and City Council meeting. During that meeting, and as part of that meeting, staff produced a pretty robust memo. We then provided about a 35 or 40-minute presentation. And we also provided the OSBT and the City Council with our staff recommendation. We then entertained clarifying questions from council members as well as Board of Trustees. Then we heard public testimony and then finally some final clarifying questions before motions were made both by the board and the council to continue the public hearing at the respective meetings in March. Next slide, please. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is City Council consideration and deliberation on the request for on a revised staff recommendation. And this will include this brief presentation, comments from the OSBT chair, any additional clarifying questions that City Council may have of staff or the OSBT chair. And then we'll have limited public testimony as Alicia explained earlier. And then the mayor will help you all dive into consideration of the disposal transfer request of open space land. And next slide, please. So as we said, on March 13th, the OSBT did take action. And I will just read the motion into record. John Carroll moved the Open Space Board of Trustees to adopt Resolution 24-01 and approve and recommend that City Council approve the request from the City of Boulder's Utility Department to use and manage approximately 2.2 acre portion of the Van Vliet open space property to construct, access, operate, and maintain elements of the South Boulder Creek Flood Mitigation Project pursuant to the disposal procedures of City Charter, Article 7, Section 170, Article 12, Section 177. Michelle Estrella seconded that motion, and that motion passed unanimously 5-0. And next slide, please. Based on OSBT recommendation, there's been a slight revision to the staff recommendation. It essentially aligns with OSBT motion. And you can see here by the bolded language, the minor modifications of the staff motion. The motion to approve the request, and then finally a sentence added at the end and authorizing the city manager to approve an interdepartmental memorandum of understanding consistent with the provisions of the Open Space Board of Trustees Resolution 2024-01. And it will be through that interdepartmental memorandum of understanding that will actually, where the transfer of land will actually take place. And next slide, please. So before we move into any final clarifying questions that you may have, I'm going to turn things over to OSBT Dave Kuntz, who will help to summarize OSBT action. And if Dave is here and available, if he could come on.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening, City Council and City Manager. I want to just real briefly provide a bit of context for the council on the Open Space Board of Trustees actions to consider the city's utilities department request to transfer the 2.2 acres of open space and mountain parks land, the transfer area, to the utilities department for the construction of a flood wall to help mitigate the impacts of a 100-year flood event on South Boulder Creek. The land transfer is necessary because the land will no longer meet the open space purposes as defined in the city charter. This action taken by the Open Space Board of Trustees is not a routine land disposal action. The Open Space Mountain Parks land will actually transfer from one city department, the Open Space and Mountain Parks Department, to another city department, the Utilities Department, rather than to a non-city entity or owner. The transferred land will continue to be owned by the city for construction of the flood project. The motion approved by the Open Space Board of Trustees contained in the Open Space Board of Trustees Resolution 2024-01 in your meeting packet includes 4 recommendations to accompany the land disposal action. Acquisition by the city of the 119-acre site identified as open space other in the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan and of designated water rights from the University of Colorado. Use of the 119 acres in water rights by the Utilities Department for the mitigation of impacts from the flood project and restoration of the site by the Open Space and Mountain Parks Department. Restoration of the Open Space and Mountain Parks land used for a temporary construction area for the project. And finally, the transfer area reverting back to the Open Space and Mountain Parks Department if the flood project is not permitted or constructed. These 4 recommendations are considered critical for the land disposal to occur in order to incorporate previous decisions and actions by council in collaboration with the University of Colorado and to protect and preserve the valuable natural areas, both the restored 119 acres and the adjoining wetlands, native prairies, and critical habitats for threatened and rare plants and animals. A majority of the board did not consider additional recommendations or amendments to the motion to be necessary or appropriate. The Open Space Board of Trustees also unanimously approved a motion to recommend to council the annexation of 4.1 acres of the Open Space and Mountain Parks property by the city in order to construct the flood project. The annexation consists of the 2.2 acres of the transfer area, which becomes land managed by the Utilities Department for the flood project, and 1.9 acres of the Open Space and Mountain Parks land for a temporary construction area that remains Open Space and Mountain Parks land and which will be restored to the native condition as part of the completion of the flood project. The Open Space Board of Trustees considered a motion to staff identifying the importance of determining public access and use of the 308-acre site comprising the CU South property and the 119 acres of flood mitigation and restoration open space and mountain parks property before and during construction and prior to the development of the CU South property. For example, mitigation of project impacts on critical habitats of threatened species, public access, and let's see, wait a minute, I'm just confused. Public access and use of mitigation and restoration sites are not requirements in federal permits and may be considered detrimental to successful impact mitigation and restoration in the permitting process. I apologize for confusing people potentially. The example was that the status of the 119-acre mitigation and restoration site is pretty much defined by the permitting process, and so public access or use is not really a requirement in the permitting process. So that provides some potential for further discussion. In any event, the motion passed 4-1 and is included in your agenda packet. So those were the actions that the Open Space Board of Trustees considered and passed a week ago on March 14th, 2024. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Dave. I really appreciate you being here with us tonight. And then while you're here, I believe your service on the board is ending here in just a few short weeks, and wanted to thank you. I know you've spent 5 years working very hard for the benefit of the open space system in the city, and I just wanted to thank you very, very deeply for all of that service.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. This is actually my last official action. My tenure will end next Friday.
Yeah. Well, all the more thanks for being here with us today, particularly on such a weighty matter, which I know you all did not take at all lightly. So
I wouldn't have missed it.
Appreciate it. Any clarifying questions for Dave or for Dan from council members? Mark.
If somebody could perhaps clarify for me, the conditions being suggested or imposed by the OSBT resolution, aren't most of those contained in the annexation agreement? Can someone speak to that? Is this something new and unusual? I mean, obtaining the 119 acres is a provision of the annexation agreement, which becomes effective finally when we obtain the approvals to build the project. Am I wrong? Am I missing something? There's something almost circular about what I'm hearing. Are we imposing new conditions on the effectiveness of the action we're taking tonight? Maybe Teresa could speak to that, or somebody could speak to that.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Wallach. First, I'd like to note that these aren't conditions so much as recommendations from the Open Space Board of Trustees. And then I'll look to David Gear, who can speak to the annexation agreement and answer your question in particular.
Thank you.
So for the most part, they're addressed in the annexation agreement. Some of the provisions require subsequent action by the city. So for example, with respect to the 119 acres, part of that 119 acres will be gifted to the city as part of the annexation agreement. And another portion of that is going to be sold to the city at a set price. So I think that the spirit of the recommendations of the Open Space Board of Trustees is along the lines of implement that which is addressed in the annexation agreement.
And David, although you need no introduction, if you wouldn't mind introducing.
David Gear from the City Attorney's Office. My apologies.
I would add that there's a couple of additional recommendations in the resolution for council, and that is regarding the temporary construction area, as well as sort of the reversionary clause, that what happens if, and that the transfer will go back to open space if for whatever reason the flood project is not able to be commenced. So a couple of additional provisions that were in the resolution that isn't directly part of the CU South annexation agreement. So there are a couple of sort of non-CU South annexation items in there.
May I inquire as to what staff's position is on that?
We support both the utilities staff and the open space staff, and CAO have worked and support items C and D, which would be that the temporary construction area will be restored after its temporary use, and that the 2.2 acres will revert back to open space if the flood project is not able to be undertaken. So staff is supportive of those.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Wallach, if I may jump in, I think the Open Space Board of Trustees wanted to reemphasize the importance of those recommendations as the basis for its decision to dispose of the open space and mountain parks property. And so they are reiterated in the resolution, and the board saw them as a significant foundation for the decision for the disposal.
Thank you.
Mark, does that answer your questions?
Yes, it does.
Okay, we got Matt and then Tina.
Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate the clarification and also grateful for OSBT for passing this unanimously. My question is, some of those recommendations seem operational in nature. And so in terms of just how OSBT goes about operating said space and or utilities, and I just want to sort of make sure and separate that dividing line of what's operational versus stuff council really doesn't have purview or should weigh in on versus what would be really more policy side. And so I'm just wondering if we can kind of draw that clear line so we can kind of parse out the operational and say, have at it. We trust you all to knock it out of the park versus what may be sort of left on the plate that's policy related.
Do you want to take that?
Well, seeing no one, Councilman Member Benjamin, again, I think the board had some specific expectations and wanted to provide direction to staff as far as its basis for the disposal decision. And so even though some of those recommendations may have an operational component, I think the board definitely wanted to ensure that it was clear, the basis for the disposal decision.
Matt, I'll just bring you to the revised staff recommendation, which is a fairly brief recommendation with just one additional sentence, just sort of conveying that it's through the IDMOU that will be sort of making this transfer request happen, and that and staff is definitely on board with having to be consistent with those 4 points that were raised in the resolution. Obviously, if council feels some of those are more operational in nature and not policy in nature, that would be fine. But our staff recommendation is fairly brief and just makes note of the IDMOU.
I appreciate it. I see Teresa's hand up, but just for me, I just would like clarity just so that there's a clear understanding for council, staff, and community of where those lines are for what is operational. I read most of that as being mostly operational, and I could be corrected, but nonetheless, I think it's good for just setting expectations. So I'll let Teresa probably correct me if I'm wrong there.
No, thank you. Your point is well taken, Matt. In fact, much of this is operational. And in particular, what I would say is the umbrella of the Interdepartmental Memorandum of Understanding, which is what we're referring to as the IDMOU, is operational in nature. And that is executed under the supervision of the city manager between the two departments. So here, of course, that would be Open Space and Mountain Parks and the Utilities Department. And the all of the topics about how to go about the disposal and when access will be allowed, those kinds of things will all be addressed in the IDMOU. And again, as you note, those fall under the administrative branch of the government.
Thank you for clarifying, Teresa, because at the end of the day, I think there's a sense that what this action we're proposing tonight is the final discretionary step in this process. And so I just want to make sure that the IDMOU is not seen or misconstrued as yet perhaps another avenue for discretionary stuff on behalf of, from council's perspective, that our job would be done tonight on whatever decision we make, and the rest of those actions maintain are operational in nature through the finality of the project.
Point taken. Tina?
Yeah, thank you for all this information, and also thank you to the staff that's been really great about addressing the different questions I've had, both just for my own understanding and also for community members who've reached out. So, and in particular, Joe Taducci's helped me a lot with this whole process. I wanted to ask one question about how the budgeting will go through when it relates to the restoration both of the 1.9 acres of habitat back to its natural state, and then the restoration of the 119 acres that we're restoring into wetlands. And I'm not looking, for an escrow account or anything like that, but I am trying to understand what happens if the budget goes way, gets much higher. Are we flexible in the budgets that we can pull from to make sure that those habitat restoration initiatives do happen in a timely way?
Good evening, City Council, and I can maybe take a first pass at this, and thanks for that question, Tina. And so we have $66 million in the budget right now. About 51 million of that is allocated for the civil engineering parts of the flood structure, and then other elements are related to property acquisition. And we have been closely monitoring the budget and have had a construction contractor come on board to kind of review that as one aspect, and recently received an update from our consultant, and it's tracking that those are sound numbers so far. I know we have experience with projects coming in and overruns, and I would say within the utilities budgets and reserves, we have the ability to absorb and some flexibility if it comes in unexpectedly higher.
Thank you so much. That helps. And I'm remiss in not also just appreciating Dan Berg and Dave Kuntz, because everyone's just been so great as a new city council member. So thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and open the continued limited public hearing. We have two speakers. Each of you will have 3 minutes to speak, and I'll just remind you that we're asking that the content of the testimony be about the action that the Open Space Board of Trustees took since our last public hearing. So our two speakers are Mary Scott and Lin Seagull. So Mary, you are up.
I do not see Mary online, but Mary, if you are here, please let me know by using the raise hand function or reaching out to me in the Q&A box.
Okay, then we'll turn to Lin Seagull.
Yeah, I want to read to you something from 1997. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Gotcha. This is good. From Gilbert White, who's dead now. It should be of deep concern to other citizens that UDFCD and CWCB are strongly endorsing certification of a levee that does not actually prevent flooding into the city under a representation that it is vital to local public safety. Since the berm mainly protects the remaining mined property, a reasonable citizen might conclude that the true motive for certification is other than the safety of Boulder's citizens. There were 23 private meetings with Flatirons Gravel who never completed their reclamation that they were required to do. 23 private meetings that resulted in a $16 million cost, of which $5 million went to Flatirons Gravel in a gift basically for a tax benefit, taking the city out of competition because the city could have bought it for 10 or 11, but not 16. So this is a crime. This is like a war crime. This is like Gaza. It really is. That reclamation needs to be completed. This is a complete takings of this open space land towards this false remediation of a 100-year floodplain when CU South gets 500 years and we pay 63 to $100 million to landfill them so that they get 500 and we get 100. And then when it backs up, it's going to, guess what? In the 100-year floodplain, it's going to flood another neighborhood. And those people are going to come back to you and they're going to be pretty upset after all of this has transpired, and CU South is there. Do not do this. And you should give more time to people. Do you respect your public? You don't with 2 minutes. That is not respect. Other communities in this area get up to 5 and more minutes. If you're really reaching out to the public, walk your talk. And listen, there are many highly educated intellectuals in this community, in this university community, and you don't have the ability to hear from them because you give them 2 minutes. Done.
Thank you. Has Mary Scott come in?
Mary has not.
All right, in that case, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and I will bring it to council for discussion and deliberation. Who would like to kick us off?
Can I go ahead and make a motion?
Feel free, Matt. It's in the chat.
I see it. Presume it's the same one in the presentation. Well, text is a little bigger, easier to read. My aging eyes. All right, I'm going to make a motion to approve the request from the City of Boulder's Utilities Department to transfer use and management of approximately 2.2 acre portion of the Van Fleet open space property from the Open Space and Mountain Parks Department to the Utilities Department to construct, access, operate, and maintain elements of the South Boulder Creek Flood Mitigation Project, pursuant to the disposal procedures of City Charter, Article 12, Section 177 and Section 8-8-11, Transfer of Open Space Lands, BRC 1981, and authorizing the city manager to approve an interdepartmental memorandum of understanding consistent with the provisions of Open Space Board of Trustees Resolution 2024-01.
Second.
Gary, do you want to flip for it? I'll let you take it.
It doesn't matter.
All right, on a motion by Councilmember Benjamin and a second by Councilmember Wagner. Matt, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I'll save actually some of my comments towards the end once we do this, but I will just say, long time coming. It's our final discretionary opportunity on this long project, and a lot of people involved to get us where we are. And in particular, just want to thank staff, because there's been lots of different staff members and different leadership over the years, and all of that continuity has really gotten us to this place. A lot of this is policy, that's what's seen in public, but none of this would have been possible without really detailed work from staff. So just want to give a big shout out, Dan, Joe, your teams, and everybody else, Open Space Board of Trustees as well. So a big shout out there. And then I've got some comments on the back end too, if there's an opportunity, but thanks to everybody.
Sarah, did you want to speak?
And thank you to the previous councils that were involved in this.
Anyone else like to speak before we vote? Mark?
Yeah, anyone who had the very dubious pleasure of reading my recent hotline knows that I will be supporting this disposal. I think it's a necessary step, and it's the correct step, and we need to proceed to determine if we can obtain the necessary permits to build the CU South Flood Mitigation Project. It's been a long road to this time, as Councilmember Benjamin pointed out. There have been myriad staff members who have worked on it. There have been many council members who've been involved in it, including former Mayor Weaver and former council member Friend, who were on the negotiating committee. This has been a very long road. I'm hoping it's coming to a conclusion tonight, and I will be voting in favor of exactly that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I'll go ahead and call on myself. If I may, I'll be brief here, but this has been a very long road. I remember right after I first got on council in 2015, one of the first things I did was meet with residents of Fraser Meadows, who showed videos about their harrowing experience in the 2013 flood. And I know that I've been dedicated from that time to providing the people in the affected neighborhoods with the flood protection that they need. And so very excited tonight to be voting in favor of this disposal because it will allow for the protection of those 2,300 downstream residents who will finally, with this step and then the building of the flood mitigation project, get the life safety protection that they desperately need. So I'll maybe offer a couple more things later, but just huge thank yous to all the staff who've worked so hard on this over the years, and all the residents who've been involved, and all the council members who have worked very hard on this initiative for many, many years. So thanks for that. Ryan?
The risk of being a little redundant, I also would like to recognize and thank the council members who have worked on this so hard before. I'm just coming into this at the very end. And so I know that this is an incredibly complex process and project, and there has been just an enormous amount of data and daylight that have come to this. And we're making the best decision we can with the information that we have. And that's thanks to a lot of folks that have come before. And especially I'd like to just say to Councilmember Wallach, thank you for your diligence on this up until this very end point. So thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, seeing no other hands raised, Alicia, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We'll start the roll call vote for the public hearing motion to approve the resolution from the OSBT board with Councilmember Benjamin.
Resounding yes.
Mayor Brockett.
Yes.
Councilmember Folkerts.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
Shuhart.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Yes.
Councilmember Wallach.
Aye.
Weiner.
Yes.
And Adams.
Yes.
The motion to approve the management of the Van Veet property as recommended by the OSBT board is hereby approved unanimously.
Thanks so much for that. Thanks to my colleagues for that vote. It's been a very long road indeed. And with this, we come to the end of at least the discretionary part and move to the implementation of the flood mitigation project, which we look very much forward to. Matt?
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I said I wanted to sort of save some words, and it sort of demanded that we have to get past the vote a little bit because with that vote, there's some finality to this, and there's some redundancy a little bit, but bear with me. There's actually some people that need to be, and groups need to be thanked for the long road that it's taken to get here. It has been an incredibly long process. It's been a thorough one with tons of community input, more than probably any project the city has ever undertaken. And tonight, we have provided 2,300 Boulder residents a better chance to sleep at night, more so than they have since that 2013 flood. Just a little bit easier than they have. And hopefully when we get it finished, they will be able to sleep fully easy. So this is a big step for us. But first, I want to recognize the project's committed opponents. Your concerns and skepticism have ultimately led to changes to the agreement, such as enhanced open space protection and public access to the whole site and some others. And that scrutiny and that is an important part of our debate. And so I know that some people feel like this was not where they wanted it to go, but know that that input has really shaped this to be the best possible alternative and the best possible solution to protect our community. But I wanted to also start by thanking some people that have been absolutely foundational in this. First, I want to start with our mayor, Aaron Brockett, who has been a champion of this project his whole time on council and has seen it from beginning to end. And so just a big thanks to our mayor for being a thread through many councils to get it to this point and be here to see it in its final stages. I want to thank former council member Rachel Friend, former Mayor Sam Weaver, former Mayor Leslie Durgan, and former Councilmember Bob Yates, along with Councilmember Mark Wallach, for just really being along for the ride and really helping shepherd this through, as long as the whole 2019 through 2021 City Council. And as we said, really thanking staff. So Director of Utilities, Joe Tadeucci, the engineer, project engineer, Brandon Coleman, and former city staff like Phil Kleisler and former city manager, Jane Bronigan, but also couldn't have done this without our current city manager, Nuria Rivera Vandermeid. There's a lot of groups that have been a part of this as well. South Boulder Creek Action Group, Boulder Chamber, Boulder Progressives, Better Boulder, Open Boulder. And then certainly our partners at the university. As a sovereign state entity, they could have played hardball with us and told us to pound sand. Instead, they largely met our needs and they bent their position in order to fill the gaps in our negotiations. So a big thank to our partners at the university. That includes Chancellor Phil DeStefano, Derek Silva, Patrick O'Rourke, and Lori Call, and many, many others. But there's also some very special people that sadly did not survive and did not get to live long enough to see this through the end. And that includes former CU Vice Chancellor Francis Draper, who was instrumental into getting this project done. And there are some staff and residents at Fraser Meadows, some of whom are no longer with us. Pat Carden, Al LeBlanc, Bruce Thompson, Tim Johnson, Carla Rickensrud, Luis Bradley, Don Cody, Criff Crawford, Pete Palmer, Jim Wolf, Chuck Howe, Pete Dawson, Chuck Wellman, and Dorothy Rubert, all of which were part of that devastating flood, got out by the skin of their teeth, also with their lives, and then spent most of their time, up until some of them, their last breath, fighting for this flood mitigation project. And there are undoubtedly more that have helped get this project and the city across to this milestone. So just thank you for the opportunity to be able to thank those people, because this is one of the most important life-saving things this council and many councils have been able to achieve. And so just thanks to everybody that's been a part of it.
Thanks for that, Matt. It was a very thorough and very well done set of thank yous to many people who deserve it very much. Marianne?
Mayor, I couldn't agree more, and I just appreciate Matt for lifting up the efforts of staff. I want to recognize this is a cross-departmental effort, and there are so many people. Joe and Dan before you were just extraordinary leaders all around, and there behind them, there is a massive team, and we certainly couldn't have done it without the work of PNDS and the city attorney's office behind them as well. There's so many people, but I wanted to lift those in particular as additional big partners that had a heavy lift throughout this. So just thank you, Matt, for lifting up staff, because it was extraordinary effort, and wanted to make sure that we called those out as well.
Maria, and I'll just chime in a little. I won't go back over Matt's whole list, but I just wanted to call out a few former council colleagues, who were supporters over the years, and that includes Jan Burton, who was first elected in 2015 and was with me at that meeting at Fraser Meadows. Matt Applebaum was a big supporter from the early days and worked hard with us on the comprehensive plan changes that led to this point. And then our former mayor, Sam Weaver, who was part of the discussions with CU. And Bob Yates, who also was elected in 2015 and was a strong supporter throughout his time on council, right up through the end. And then I have to finish with former council member Rachel Friend, who ran for office in part because of this project and worked on it very hard during her 4 years on council, and was part of those discussions with CU as well. And so Rachel, would have been great to have you with us tonight for this vote, but thanks for all of your efforts over the years. Any other comments from folks? All right, seeing none, then Dave, I'm going to thank you once again for joining us here tonight, and thank you again in the Open Space Board of Trustees for your hard work on this over the years. Because I just have to say that that list of requests that you all put together a few years ago made an enormous difference in terms of the amount of positive ecological transformation that's going to come from this project.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And with that, we'll bring this to a close, and we can move to our second and final public hearing for the evening. Please, Alicia.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Our second public hearing is item 5B on tonight's agenda. It is the consideration of the following items related to a petition to annex a property at 5600 Table Mesa Drive. The first item is the Resolution 1347, consideration of a motion to adopt setting forth the findings of facts and conclusions. And the second item is the second reading and consideration of a motion to adopt ordinance 8623, which is annexing the property at 5600 Table Mesa Drive to the city of Boulder.
Mayor, we are going straight to Christopher Johnson in Planning and Development Services.
Thank you,
Area. And hello, City Council members, Christopher Johnson, Comprehensive Planning Manager. And let me fire up the presentation here in just a moment. Okay, are you seeing the full presentation slide? Yes, I'm getting a thumbs up. Okay, great. Well, as I mentioned, I'm Christopher Johnson. I'm the Comprehensive Planning Manager. I am here to provide the presentation and the information around this proposed annexation and the initial zoning for 5600 Table Mesa Drive. It's also known as case number LUR 2024-00001, and it is related to the South Boulder Creek Flood Project and spillway and flood wall in particular. So annexation is the process to incorporate land into the city boundary. Land can be considered for annexation if it complies with state annexation statutes and the policies of the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan. The comp plan provides a framework for annexation and urban service provision within the city, as you know. And if a property is annexed, then the city must also assign city zone district that is established and is consistent with the land use designation in the land use map of the BVCP. So the area that we are discussing this evening is addressed as 5600 Table Mesa Drive. It includes just over 4 acres of city-owned land that up until just a few moments ago was currently managed by OSMP. You can see that in the graphic seen in green. And then about 23 acres of adjacent right-of-way that is part of the CDOT US 36 highway. And so the total area is about 27.4 acres. The annexation includes that adjacent right-of-way, partly because portions of the flood mitigation project itself, for example, the outlet works will carry water below the road and to the north side. That'll be located obviously within that right-of-way area. And including the right-of-way will further define the jurisdictional clarity and the permitting processes. However, the underlying ownership will not change after annexation, so that portion of right-of-way will still be owned by CDOT going forward. Currently, the annexation area is within the jurisdiction of Boulder County, and it's zoned as rural residential. So a couple of photographs just to orient you in terms of existing conditions. Most of you probably have traveled this area and know it well. Most of the area that is proposed for the annexation, as I mentioned, is right-of-way. It includes the US 36 vehicle travel lanes, the adjacent multi-use path, and then associated median and shoulder areas. And then the city-owned portion is, you can see visible there to the south of the highway, and it's comprised mostly of the natural lands that are part of the Van Vliet South open space, as was discussed earlier. If we look at the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan planning areas map, you can see that the city-owned property itself, so south of the highway, is within Area 3, and portions of the CDOT right-of-way are split between Area 2 and Area 3. You can see the Area 2 portion on the west, and then Area 3 to the east. Area 2 is the area within the Boulder Valley where annexation into the city for development can be considered if it's consistent with the relevant BVCP policies. And then Area 3 refers to the area within the valley where the city and the county intend to preserve rural land uses. The land use designations for the area include open space acquired for the city-owned property that's south of the highway, and then a combination of parks, urban and other, and then public and semi-public within the right-of-way itself, as seen on the graphic here. And then, as you would probably suspect, the area is highly impacted by 100-year and 500-year floodplains, the conveyance zone and high hazard zone. And just to note that these boundaries, both upstream and downstream, will change and be remapped as part of the South Boulder Creek flood mitigation project. So obviously that the flood works and the project itself will have a significant effect on where these floodplain boundaries are in the future. And as I mentioned, as part of the annexation process, the city would also assign zoning to the property. The zone district that's proposed in the application before you is to apply public or P zoning to the city-owned property and right-of-way. Public zoning is defined in the Boulder Revised Code as public areas in which public and semi-public facilities and uses are located, including without limitation governmental and educational uses. And you can see that there's also public zoning that's applied to several properties that are adjacent to the area. So the context, the proposed public zoning would fit into the surrounding context as well. And then finally, the annexation area has been assessed for wetland habitat, and there were 5 wetland areas that were identified in the proposed annexation boundary. All of those were identified as high quality, and therefore they would include the required 50-foot buffer as part of that mapping, and that would be adopted as part of this annexation. There's more detailed maps of the areas, and the functional evaluations are included in your agenda packet as attachments as well. Noticing of the application was completed consistent with Boulder Revised Code, so all the noticing requirements that are established in section 9-4-2 have been met. Written notification was mailed to all the property owners within 600 feet of the proposed annexation boundary. Signs were posted on the property for at least 10 days, and to date, there's been no written public comment that has been received that's directly related to this proposed annexation. As far as board feedback, Planning Board reviews all proposed annexations to the city and makes a recommendation to City Council. So there was a public hearing on March 5th where Planning Board voted unanimously 6-0 to recommend approval of this proposed annexation. And then additionally, in this particular case, the Open Space Board of Trustees reviews annexations that have an open space interest. And so that referred to the 4 acres of city-owned land south of the highway that was currently managed by OSMP. And at their public hearing on March 13, they also voted unanimously to recommend approval of the proposed annexation. So this evening, there's 3 key issues that are identified by staff for your discussion and consideration. First is, does the annexation request comply with applicable state annexation statutes? Second is the proposal consistent with the city's annexation and other Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan policies? And then is the initial zoning of public appropriate for the subject property? So I'll address each of these here individually. So in terms of state law, the annexation petition is included in the application and in your agenda packet and is consistent with the statutory and constitutional requirements. The site does meet the required 1/6 contiguity to the city. There's a community interest to annex the property, and the area is capable of being integrated into the city of Boulder. As the area is proposed for annexation is greater than 10 acres, there was an annexation impact report that is required and was provided to Boulder County, to the Board of County Commissioners at least 25 days prior to this public hearing. In terms of the city's policies and the comprehensive plan related to annexation, the site may be considered for annexation because a portion of it is located in Area 2. And then the portion that is in Area 3 meets certain criteria and conditions that are allowed under BBC Policy 1.17, particularly subsection H. So specifically, Area 3 properties are able to be considered for annexation if they meet these specific criteria within subsection H, which includes that they be publicly owned, that they remain in Area 3, and there's a category called Area 3 Annex, which is applied to Area 3 properties that are within the city boundary. They will not require the full range of urban services or that the area is being included within the city for health, safety, and welfare reasons. The application is also consistent with the other annexation policies described in the comprehensive plan, which are 1.08 and 1.10. And it will facilitate the construction of the flood mitigation project. So that in particular addresses several additional comp plan policies related to the ongoing life safety and environmental aspects of managing our floodplains within the city. So overall, staff finds the proposal is consistent with the relevant BVCP policies. And finally, in terms of zoning, if a property is annexed, then the city would establish zoning that is consistent with the goals and the land use map of the comp plan. As described before, the proposed zoning in the application is for public zoning, and we find that the zoning is consistent with the land use designations of OSA PKUO, and public. And it's also a logical extension to the city, given the existence of that same public zone district in the immediately surrounding context. So in conclusion, staff finds that 1, the proposed annexation is consistent with state statute. Number 2, it is consistent with the city's codes and the comprehensive plan. And then finally, that the initial zoning of public is consistent with the comp plan goals in the land use designations. The proposed zoning is also a logical extension of the city and compatible with the surrounding context. So we recommend that City Council make and approve the following motions. And I will not read those tonight, but if you need me to, I certainly.
Thanks for that, KJ. Any questions from council for staff on this one? And KJ, you can, there you go, take that down. Thanks. No questions? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this. We have one person signed up to speak. So Lin Seagull, you get 3 minutes.
Nope. Doesn't meet large flooding events, 3.25. Doesn't meet high hazard, 3.24. Doesn't meet health, welfare, and safety of the individuals downstream. You manipulate a floodplain like this area has been without a reclamation that was required, that was never conducted. You put the public at risk. When you put in a 100-year floodplain and it backs up, guess what it does? It goes and it floods the upper area into other areas that were not presumed to be within the floodplain. And when that happens, you're going to catch a lot of flack from the public in those areas. You're not doing an adequate flood mitigation. You need 500-year. And this area needs to have the full reclamation done before any mitigation projects are done. There are 16 other flood drainages in town. And to say that we're spending so much money on this one is not justifiable when you're not doing an adequate job and you're not protecting Boulder Valley Comp Plan initiatives, which are health, welfare, and safety. You're not. You're making it worse for people. And you're going to have to live through being council members during this time when years down, this goes out of control. And you see what's happened. No, I don't know, but I got to call the people associated with the opposition and see now if we have 60 days, if this is our 60-day limit for, fighting this with a ballot measure. If they're willing to do that, I'm going to go door to door. I'm set to go for this. This is a travesty that this has happened. I've been watching this thing for 35 years and no way. This is horrific to do this on a state, for a state entity. Granted, we live in the city, which is in the county, which is in the state, but we're not beholden to the state. And I hope that there's a threat to FEMA that they're going to get backlash on this with their permitting. They're probably not going to permit it appropriately now that you've got your way. But I highly recommend you don't accept either one of these land giveaways tonight. This is not in my best interest. And it's not in the best interest of the floodplain below this whole area. And it causes so many problems, like at 1015 Juniper lately, that went for demolition because it's on the conveyance zone.
Then your time is up. Thank you for your testimony. And with that, I will close the public hearing and come back to council. We have discussion, deliberation, or does anyone want to put a motion on the table?
I'll make a motion.
Go for it.
Do you want a motion for both or one at a time?
One at a time, please.
Okay, first, motion to adopt resolution 1347, setting forth findings of fact and conclusions regarding the annexation of approximately 27 acres of land generally located at 5600 Table Mesa Drive to the city of Boulder.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion second. Any discussion on that before vote? Mark, did you want to speak to it?
No, I just think this is necessary for the completion of the project. We've had a great deal of data given to us on this, and I just don't regard it as especially controversial at this point in time.
Very good. Elisha, would you like a roll call for both of these?
Yes, sir.
If you could, then.
All right, thank you. We'll start the roll call for Resolution 1347 under item 5B, number 1, with you, Mayor Brockett.
Yes.
Councilmember Folkers.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
Shuhart.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Yes.
Councilmember Wallach.
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
And Benjamin.
Yes.
Resolution 1347 is hereby approved unanimously.
Thank you. Nicole?
I was going to make a motion. That's okay.
Please.
Motion to adopt ordinance 8623, annexing to the city of Boulder approximately 27 acres of land generally located at 5600 Table Mesa Drive with an initial zoning classification of public P as described in chapter 9-5, modular zone system, BRC 1981. Amending the zoning district map forming a part of said chapter to include the property in the above mentioned zoning district and setting forth related details.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Nicole, did you want to speak to that?
Just to once again thank everybody for all of their work. I'm really excited to see this continue to move forward.
Thanks. Any other comments before the vote? Seeing none, Elisha, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We'll start the roll call for ordinance 8623 with Councilmember Folkers.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
Shuhart.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Yes.
Councilmember Wallach.
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Benjamin.
Yes.
And Mayor Brockett.
Yes.
Ordinance 8623 is hereby adopted unanimously.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. And for this, we really have to thank city staff and the planning department. And you all done a fantastic job with this annexation process, but also with all of the work related to the disposal, the annexation, the work with CU. Just the list goes on and on and on. The quality of your work is unparalleled, and just deeply grateful to everyone on city staff who's participated in this over the years. Nicole?
Can I just do a special shout out to our council employees, Nuria and Teresa, for all of your work, and especially with this whole project, just kind of picking it up as it was getting so close to some really key points and carrying it forward. Just really grateful for your leadership and your work on this. So thank you both.
Absolutely. Well said. Any other comments on this one? All right, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Any final thoughts? We can end here before 8 o'clock. All right, seeing none, thanks everybody for a great meeting, and I'll gavel us closed at 7:55 p.m. Take care and have a great spring break, everyone. See you in a couple weeks.